Area Chen's head throbbed as she regained consciousness, the cold metal floor pressing against her cheek. The last thing she remembered was the chaos at the Galactic Peace Summit on Centauri Prime. Shouting, a bright flash, and then darkness. As her vision cleared, she found herself in a small, dimly lit cell, surrounded by smooth, dark walls that seemed to absorb light. "Welcome to the void, human," a gravelly voice echoed from a small speaker in the corner. "Your new home for the rest of your miserable life." Arya struggled to her feet, her diplomatic uniform torn and stained. "There's been a mistake," she called out, her voice hoarse. "I'm Arya Chen, Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council. I demand to speak with—" A harsh laugh cut her off. "In here, you're nothing but prisoner X-7294. Your old life, your titles, they mean nothing in the void." The reality of her situation began to sink in. The void. She had heard whispers of this place, a maximum security prison, hidden in the farthest reaches of the galaxy. It housed the most dangerous criminals from 1,000 worlds, beings so volatile that their very existence threatened the fragile peace between star systems. But she didn't belong here. Arya's mind raced, trying to piece together what had happened. The summit, the negotiations for Earth's full membership in the Galactic Council, and then sabotage, an attack. Whatever had occurred, she was certain it was tied to her imprisonment. A loud clang resonated through the cell, and a small opening appeared in one wall. "Mealtime, X-7294, the voice announced. "Better hurry before the others get there first." Arya cautiously stepped out of her cell into a wide, circular corridor. Other doors were opening, and strange, alien figures began to emerge. She had worked with non-humans for years as a diplomat, but nothing had prepared her for the sheer diversity and alienness of her fellow inmates. A towering, four-armed being with iridescent scales pushed past her, followed by a floating cloud of sentient gas confined within a transparent sphere. Arya stumbled, nearly falling into a gelatinous creature that oozed along the floor, leaving a sizzling trail in its wake. "Watch it, soft skin." The gelatinous being burbled, its surface rippling with angry red patterns. Arya opened her mouth to apologize, but no sound came out. The sheer alienness of her surroundings overwhelmed her senses. She was the only human in sight, a fact that didn't go unnoticed by the other prisoners. Well, what do we have here?" A voice like grinding stones made Arya turn. A massive, rocky being stood before her, its crystalline eyes glinting in the dim light. A human, all alone in the void. How delicious. Arya stood her ground, years of diplomatic training kicking in. "I mean no harm," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm simply trying to." The rock being's laugh was like an avalanche. "In the void, harm is all there is, little human. You'll learn that soon enough." Before Arya could respond, a piercing alarm echoed through the corridor. The inmates began to shuffle towards a large opening at the end of the hallway. Arya followed, her heart pounding. The opening led to a vast, cavernous space, the central hub of the void. Hundreds, maybe thousands of inmates milled about. Some lined up before dispensers that oozed various unidentifiable substances. Food, Arya presumed, tailored to the diverse biological needs of the prisoners. As she took in the scene, Arya felt the weight of countless eyes upon her. Whispers in 100 alien languages filled the air. She was an oddity, a novelty. And in a place like this, that made her a target. "You look lost, human," a soft, melodic voice said from behind her. Arya turned to see a slender avian being with iridescent feathers and large, liquid eyes. "I am Zixrix. It would be wise for you to find allies quickly in this place." Arya nodded, grateful for the seemingly friendly face. "I'm Arya. I don't belong here. There's been a terrible mistake." Zixrix trilled, a sound that might have been laughter. "We all say that at first, but the void doesn't make mistakes. If you're here, it's because someone very powerful wants you here." The avian being guided Area to one of the food dispensers, showing her how to operate it. A bland, grayish paste oozed into a bowl. It's designed to be edible for most carbon-based life forms, Zixrix explained. Not pleasant, but it will keep you alive. As Area forced down the tasteless nutrient paste, Zixrix explained the basics of life in the void. The prison was divided into sectors, each controlled by different factions. There were work details, a rudimentary economy based on favors and contraband, and most importantly, an intricate web of alliances and enmities. The void is a world unto itself, Zixrix said. Forget your old life. Forget the laws and morals of the outside. In here, only strength and cunning matter. Area listened intently, her diplomat's mind already working to understand the complex social dynamics at play. But a commotion at the far end of the hall interrupted Zixrix's impromptu orientation. A group of hulking, reptilian beings was approaching, the crowd parting before them. Their leader, a scared behemoth with razor-sharp horns, fixed his gaze on Area. "So this is the human everyone's talking about," the leader growled, his forked tongue flicking out to taste the air. "I am Craxus, and this sector belongs to the Dractor clan. You're in our territory now, little soft skin." Area straightened, meeting Craxus's gaze. "I'm not looking for trouble," she said firmly. "I'm just trying to understand this place and find a way to clear up the mistake that brought me here." Craxus laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Mistake? There are no mistakes in the void. You're here because you're meant to be here, and now you'll learn your place." With shocking speed, Craxus lashed out, his clawed hand aiming for Area's throat. Years of self-defense training kicked in, and Area ducked, the claws whistling over her head. She spun, putting some distance between herself and the massive reptilian. The crowd formed a circle around them, alien voices rising in excitement. Area's heart raced, adrenaline flooding her system. She knew this was a crucial moment. Her response now would set the tone for her entire existence in the void. "I won't fight you," Area said loudly, her voice carrying across the suddenly hushed crowd. "But I won't submit either. I am Area Chen of Earth, and I do not belong here. But while I am here, I will not be anyone's victim or pawn." A murmur ran through the crowd. Craxus snarled, clearly unaccustomed to prey that talked back. He lunged again, but this time Area was ready. She sidestepped, using the reptilian's momentum against him. Craxus stumbled, crashing into a food dispenser that exploded in a shower of nutrient paste. The hall erupted in alien laughter and jeers. Craxus roared in humiliation, but before he could attack again, a klaxon sounded. Guards in sleek, powered armor poured into the hall, energy weapons at the ready. "Back to your cells, prisoners," a mechanized voice boomed. "Now." As the crowd dispersed, Area caught Zixrix's eye. The avian being gave her a slight nod, a glimmer of respect in those alien eyes. Area had survived her first day in the void, but she knew this was just the beginning. As she was herded back to her cell, Area's mind whirled with plans and possibilities. She didn't belong here, and she would find a way out. But until then, she would survive. She would adapt. And perhaps, just perhaps, she would thrive in this alien hell. The cell door slammed shut behind her, plunging Area into darkness. But in that darkness, a spark of determination burned bright. The void had no idea what it was in for. Alliances and enemies. Weeks passed, and Area Chen found herself adapting to the harsh realities of life in the void. The initial shock of her imprisonment had faded, replaced by a steely determination to survive, and ultimately, to escape. Her diplomatic skills, honed over years of interstellar negotiations, were proving invaluable in navigating the complex social dynamics of the prison. Area's cell had become a makeshift command center. The smooth, dark walls were now covered with intricate diagrams and notes, sketched out using a bioluminescent alga she had bartered from a Neptunian prisoner. These glowing schematics detailed the power structures, territories, and key players in the Void's ecosystem. A soft chime signaled the start of another day cycle. Aria stretched, her muscles aching from the previous day's work detail in the asteroid mining facility that powered the void. As she prepared to leave her cell, a familiar trill echoed from the corridor. "Good cycle, Aria," Zixrix chirped, the avian alien's feathers shimmering in the dim light. "I trust you slept well." Aria smiled at her unlikely friend. "As well as one can in this place. Any news?" Zixrix's head bobbed in a gesture Aria had learned to interpret as excitement. "Indeed. The Sylphoid Collective is seeking an audience with you. It seems your reputation is growing." This was an interesting development. The Sylphoids were a race of gaseous beings, their collective consciousness spread across multiple host bodies. They controlled a significant portion of the Void's contraband trade, and an alliance with them could provide Aria with valuable resources and information. As they made their way to the central hub, Aria noticed the change in how other prisoners reacted to her presence. Where once there were hostile stares and threatening gestures, now there were nods of acknowledgement, even the occasional gesture of respect. Her handling of Craxus had not been forgotten. The central hub was its usual hive of activity, a cacophony of alien languages and the clank of machinery. Aria's eyes scanned the crowd, noting the shifting alliances and power dynamics. The Dractor clan, led by Craxus, had been unusually quiet lately, and that worried her. Near the nutrient dispensers, a shimmering cloud of iridescent gas coalesced into a vaguely humanoid shape. The Sylphoid representative. "Greetings, Aria Chen of Earth." The Sylphoid's voice was a harmonious blend of whispers. "We have observed your actions with great interest." Aria bowed slightly, a gesture of respect she had learned was appreciated by the Sylphoids. "I'm honored by your attention. How may I be of assistance?" The Sylphoid rippled, colors shifting in patterns Aria was beginning to recognize as amusement. Direct, yet diplomatic. "Your reputation does not exaggerate. We propose an exchange of favors. Your strategic mind for our unique access to resources." It was a tempting offer, but Aria knew better than to agree too quickly. In the void, every deal had hidden costs. "I'm intrigued," she said carefully. "Perhaps we could discuss the specifics in a more private setting." Before the Sylphoid could respond, a commotion erupted across the hub. A group of newcomers was being escorted in, fresh from the induction process. Aria's breath caught in her throat as she recognized one of the figures. Ambassador Zorl of the Andromedan Confederation, her colleague and friend from the Galactic Council. Zorl's purple skin was pale, his tentacles drooping with exhaustion and shock. His four eyes widened as he spotted Aria, a mix of relief and confusion evident in his gaze. Aria's mind raced. Zorl's presence could change everything. He might have information about what really happened at the summit, about why she was here. But his arrival also meant that whatever conspiracy had landed her in the void was growing, reaching further into the Galactic Council. "Fascinating," the Sylphoid whispered. "It seems the game board has shifted once again." Aria nodded, her eyes still on Zorl. "Indeed it has. And I believe our potential partnership just became much more valuable to both of us." As Aria moved to approach Zorl, a massive figure stepped into her path. Craxus, the Dractor clan leader, his scales gleaming with barely suppressed rage. "Your luck runs out today, human," Craxus snarled. "You've made alliances, gained respect, but you forget your place. The void is no place for soft skins to thrive." Aria stood her ground, acutely aware of the eyes upon them. This confrontation had been brewing for weeks, and its outcome would resonate throughout the void. "My place, Craxus," Aria said, her voice steady, "is wherever I choose to make it. The void may not have been built for humans, but neither was the galaxy. Yet here we are, reaching for the stars." Craxus roared, a sound that shook the very air. "Pretty words won't save you, diplomat. I challenge you to the Kortak, the ritual combat of my people. To the death." A hush fell over the central hub. The Kortak was rarely invoked, a sacred tradition that even the Void's authorities wouldn't interfere with. Aria knew that refusing would destroy the reputation she had built, but accepting meant facing Craxus in a battle she was unlikely to survive. Time seemed to slow as Aria weighed her options. She thought of Earth, of the Galactic Council, of the mystery surrounding her imprisonment. She thought of Zoral and the answers he might hold. And she thought of the Void itself, this microcosm of the galaxy's complexity and conflicts. With a deep breath, Aria met Craxus's gaze. "I accept your challenge, Craxus, but know this, I do not fight for myself alone. I fight for every being in the Void who has been cast aside, forgotten, or wrongly imprisoned, and I fight to uncover the truth that brought us all here." Her words rang out across the hub, and Aria felt a shift in the energy of the crowd. Aliens of all species straightened, their eyes fixed on the human who dared to challenge not just Craxus, but the very nature of the Void itself. Craxus sneered, but Aria caught a flicker of uncertainty in his reptilian eyes. "Fine words, human. We'll see how well they serve you in combat. The Cortac will take place in 3 cycles. Prepare yourself for your death." As Craxus stomped away, the crowd erupted into a frenzy of whispers and shouts. Bets were already being placed, alliances shifting in real time as the inhabitants of the Void positioned themselves for the coming conflict. Zixrix appeared at Aria's side, feathers ruffled with concern. "This is madness, Aria. Craxus is a trained warrior, a killer. This challenge is exactly what we need." Aria finished, her mind already formulating plans. "Zixrix, I need you to get a message to Zoral and find out everything you can about the Cortac. Every rule, every tradition." The Selphoid representative drifted closer, its gaseous form shimmering with interest. "Perhaps now would be a good time to finalize our arrangement, Aria Chen. You will need all the allies you can gather." Aria nodded, her gaze sweeping across the central hub, taking in the diverse beings that populated the Void. In 3 cycles, she would either die at Craxus's claws or emerge as a power to be reckoned with. But beyond that, she was setting in motion events that could shake the very foundations of the Void, and perhaps the galaxy beyond. "Gather everyone willing to listen," Aria said, her voice low but intense. "It's time we remind everyone, including ourselves, that we're more than just prisoners. We're the lost, the forgotten, the wrongfully accused. And it's time we demanded answers." As the news of the coming Cortac spread through the Void like wildfire, Aria felt a strange calm settle over her. In accepting Craxus' challenge, she had taken the first step on a path that could lead to freedom, truth, or death. Whatever the outcome, the Void would never be the same again. And neither would she. The challenge. The 3 cycles leading up to the Cortac passed in a blur of frenetic activity. The Void buzzed with anticipation, the impending duel between Aria and Craxus overshadowing all other concerns. For Aria, every moment was precious, a chance to prepare, to gather information, to shore up alliances that could mean the difference between life and death. In a secluded corner of the asteroid mining facility, Aria stood facing her unlikely training partner, a hulking Jergorian named Grax. The 4-armed behemoth had approached her shortly after the challenge was issued, offering his assistance in exchange for a favor to be named later. Again, Grax growled, his voice like gravel in a cement mixer. "Craxus will not hesitate. You must be faster, more ruthless." Aria nodded, sweat beading on her brow. Her muscles ached from the brutal training regimen, but she pushed through the pain. She couldn't match Craxus for strength, but she could outsmart him, outlast him. As she ducked and weaved through Grax's attacks, her mind raced through the information Zixrix had gathered about the Cortac. The ritual combat was steeped in tradition, with rules that stretched back millennia. But within those rules, there was room for strategy, for cunning. A sharp pain in her side brought Aria back to the present. One of Grax's fists had slipped through her guard, delivering a punishing blow. Focus, Grax bellowed. In the arena, such a lapse means death. Aria gritted her teeth and redoubled her efforts. As she sparred, her thoughts drifted to the conversation she'd had with Zoril, facilitated by Zixrix's clever maneuvering. "It's worse than we feared, Aria," Zoril had whispered, his tentacles twitching nervously. "The attack at the summit was just the beginning. There's a faction within the Council itself, working to undermine the alliance with Earth. They fear humanity's potential, see your species as a threat." The revelation had shaken Aria to her core. Her imprisonment, it seemed, was part of a larger plot to keep humanity isolated, cut off from the galactic community. But why? What were they so afraid of? A sharp whistle cut through the air, signaling the end of the training session. Aria slumped against the rocky wall, every inch of her body screaming in protest. "You improve," Grax rumbled, something almost like approval in his gravelly voice. "But Craxus is a born killer. You will need more than skill to defeat him." Aria nodded, wiping sweat from her brow. "I know. That's why I have a plan. But I'll need your help and the help of others." Grax's eyes narrowed. "Speak." As Aria outlined her strategy, Grax's expression shifted from skepticism to grudging respect. By the time she finished, the Dragorian was nodding slowly. "Bold," he said. "Risky. But it might work. You play a dangerous game, human." "The game was dangerous from the moment I arrived in the void," Aria replied. "I'm just changing the rules." As they made their way back to the central hub, Aria could feel the weight of countless eyes upon her. News of her training with Grax had spread, and opinions were divided. Some saw it as a sign of strength, of adaptability. Others whispered that she was desperate, grasping at any advantage. Near the nutrient dispensers, Aria spotted Zixrix in quiet conversation with the shimmering form of the Sylphoid representative. Both turned as she approached, the Sylphoid's gaseous body rippling with what Aria had learned to recognize as excitement. "Aria Chen," the Sylphoid's multilayered voice whispered, "we have considered your proposal. It is intriguing. Dangerous, yes, but the potential rewards are significant." Aria allowed herself a small smile. "And your decision?" The Sylphoid's colors shifted, swirling in a complex pattern. "We are in agreement. The collective will support your endeavor. Our resources are at your disposal." It was a crucial piece falling into place. With the Sylphoid's support, Aria's plan had a real chance of success. But there were still many variables, many things that could go wrong. As the final cycle before the Cortac dawned, the void was a powder keg of tension. Aria stood in her cell, going over every detail of her plan one last time. The glowing diagrams on her walls had evolved, now showing not just the power structures of the void, but the connections to the outside, to the Galactic Council, and the conspiracy that had landed her here. A soft chime indicated a visitor. Aria turned to see Zixrix entering, the avian alien's feathers ruffled with concern. "It is time, Aria," Zixrix trilled softly. "The arena is prepared. Craxus awaits." Aria took a deep breath, centering herself. "Thank you, my friend, for everything." Zixrix cocked his head, liquid eyes shimmering. "You have brought hope to this place, Aria Chen. Whatever happens in the arena, know that you have already changed the void, changed us all." Together, they made their way to the arena, a vast, circular pit carved into the asteroid itself. The stands surrounding it were packed with inmates of every conceivable species, their collective energy palpable. At the center of the arena stood Craxus, his scales gleaming under the harsh lights, his claws flexing in anticipation. As Aria stepped onto the sandy floor, a hush fell over the crowd. "So the soft skin shows courage after all," Craxus sneered, his voice carrying across the arena. "It will make your defeat all the sweeter." Aria met his gaze steadily. "This isn't about defeat or victory, Craxus. It's about truth. About justice, for all of us trapped in the void." Craxus laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Pretty words, diplomat. Let's see how well they serve you in combat." A booming voice echoed through the arena. The Warden of the Void, speaking through an array of floating drones. "The terms of the core attack have been set. This combat will end only in death or surrender. There will be no interference." The Warden paused, its mechanized voice taking on a note of what might have been anticipation. "Begin." Craxus wasted no time, lunging at Aria with frightening speed. But Aria was ready, months of training and planning culminating in this moment. She dodged, using Craxus's momentum against him, just as she had in their first encounter. But this time, Craxus was prepared. He pivoted, his tail whipping around in a vicious arc. Aria barely managed to duck, feeling the wind of its passage ruffle her hair. The crowd roared as the combatants clashed, a deadly dance of claw and fist, of raw power and calculated strategy. Aria's plan relied on endurance, on wearing Craxus down, but every exchange left her battered and bruised. As they fought, Aria caught glimpses of familiar faces in the crowd. Zixrix, feathers puffed with tension. Grax, his forearms crossed, watching intently. The shimmering form of the Sylphoid, colors swirling in patterns too complex to decipher. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Aria's world narrowed to the arena, to the next move, the next breath. She could feel herself weakening, but Craxus too was showing signs of fatigue, his movements becoming slower, less precise. Then, in a moment of clarity, Aria saw her opening. As Craxus lunged, she dropped and rolled, positioning herself directly beneath him. With every ounce of strength she had left, she drove her fist upward, striking a point Grax had shown her, a weak spot in Draktor anatomy. Craxus howled in pain, staggering backward. The crowd's roar became deafening. This was the moment Aria had been waiting for. "Enough," she shouted, her voice cutting through the cacophony. "This ends now, Craxus. Not with death, but with truth." Before Craxus could recover, before anyone could react, Aria pulled a small device from a hidden pocket, a miniature holoprojector, courtesy of the Sylphoid Collective. With a flick of her wrist, she activated it. The arena was suddenly filled with light, holographic displays showing documents, communications, video footage, evidence of the conspiracy that had landed Aria in the void, that threatened the delicate balance of the Galactic Council. "Look," Aria called out, her voice echoing through the stunned silence. "This is why we're here. Why we've been forgotten, discarded, but no more. Today, we demand answers. We demand justice." As the implications of the revealed information sank in, the arena erupted into chaos. Prisoners turned to each other in shock and anger. The Warden's drones buzzed frantically, trying to restore order. In the center of it all stood Aria, bloodied but unbowed, her gaze fixed on Craxus. The Draktor leader stared at her, his expression a mix of rage, confusion, and just perhaps a glimmer of respect. "What have you done, human?" Craxus growled. Aria met his gaze steadily. "I've changed the game, Craxus, for all of us. The real question is, what will you do now?" As alarms blared and the chaos spread beyond the arena, Aria knew that this was just the beginning. The void would never be the same again, and neither would the galaxy beyond its walls. The challenge was over, but the real battle was just beginning. Uprising. The aftermath of the core attack plunged the void into chaos. Alarms blared incessantly, their shrill cries echoing through every corridor and cell. The revelations Aria had unleashed spread like wildfire, igniting long-suppressed anger and resentment among the diverse prison population. Aria found herself at the eye of the storm, surrounded by a swirling mass of aliens all demanding answers, explanations, or simply a target for their pent-up fury. The arena had become a makeshift command center, with different factions staking out territory and eyeing each other warily. "What now, human?" Craxus growled, nursing his injuries but still intimidating. "You've opened Pandora's box. How do you plan to control the chaos you've unleashed?" Area met his gaze steadily. Control isn't the goal, Craxus. Freedom is. Justice is. And for that, we need unity. A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. Unity was a foreign concept in the void, where alliances were temporary and self-interest reigned supreme. But the evidence Area had revealed had shaken many to their core, forcing them to reconsider long-held beliefs and grudges. Zixrix pushed through the throng, his feathers ruffled with excitement. Area. The warden has locked down all sectors. Guards are mobilizing. We don't have much time. Area nodded, her mind racing. She had anticipated this response, but the speed of the crackdown was concerning. We need to move fast. Zixrix, gather the representatives of each major faction. Craxus, I need your strength and influence. It's time to turn the void against its masters. To her surprise, Craxus nodded grudgingly. You've earned the right to lead this madness, human. But know that if you falter, I'll not hesitate to take command. As the impromptu war council assembled, Area laid out her plan. It was audacious, perhaps even foolhardy, but it was their best chance at forcing the Galactic Council to acknowledge the conspiracy and take action. The void may be a prison, Area explained, her voice carrying across the tense gathering. But it's also a vital hub in the galactic power structure. The artifacts and technologies stored here, the secrets kept. If we can gain control of the central systems, we'll have leverage. The Selfoid representative shimmered with excitement. Our collective can interface with the prison's network. We may be able to bypass some security protocols. Grax, the Jurgorian who had trained Area, stepped forward. My people can handle the heavy lifting. We'll keep the guards occupied. One by one, the various factions pledged their support, setting aside centuries-old rivalries in the face of a common enemy. Area felt a surge of hope. This was diplomacy in its rawest form, forging alliances in the crucible of crisis. As the plan took shape, alarms suddenly shifted in pitch. The warden's voice boomed through hidden speakers, its usual monotone tinged with urgency. Attention all prisoners. This uprising will not be tolerated. Lethal force has been authorized. Return to your cells immediately or face termination. Area's eyes met Zixrix. Looks like our timetable just got moved up. Everyone, to your positions. Remember, our strength is in our unity. Today, we fight not just for ourselves, but for truth and justice across the galaxy. A roar of approval shook the arena. As the diverse army of prisoners moved out, Area felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to see Ambassador Zorl, his tentacles writhing with nervous energy. Area, I've managed to access a secure comm channel, Zorl whispered. There are those in the council who suspect the truth. If we can get a message out, prove what's happening here. Area's eyes widened. This could change everything. Do it. Send everything we have. And Zorl, thank you for believing in me, in us. As Zorl hurried away, Area turned her attention to the battle ahead. The Void's security systems were formidable, designed to contain the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. But they had never faced a force like this, every prisoner united, fighting with the desperation of those who had nothing left to lose. The next hours were a blur of frantic action. Area found herself in the thick of the fighting, coordinating attacks, rallying flagging spirits, and even engaging in hand-to-hand combat with guards who managed to break through their lines. The Selfoids worked their magic on the prison systems, disabling security measures and seizing control of entire sectors. Grax and his Jurgorian brethren became a living battering ram, smashing through barricades and neutralizing guard positions. Even Craxus, who had been Area's nemesis for so long, fought with unparalleled ferocity at her side. You're either brilliant or insane, human, he growled during a lull in the fighting. Perhaps both. Area managed a grim smile. Coming from you, I'll take that as a compliment. As they pushed towards the central control hub, resistance stiffened. The warden, realizing the true threat, The uprising posed had concentrated its forces to protect the heart of the void. "This is it," Aria called out to her unlikely army. "Everything we fought for comes down to this moment. We may have been branded criminals, outcasts, dangers to society. But today, we show the galaxy that even in the darkest places, justice and truth can prevail." With a mighty roar, the prisoners surged forward. The battle for the control hub was brutal, with losses on both sides. Aria saw friends fall, saw acts of incredible bravery and sacrifice from beings she had once considered monsters. Finally, battered and bloodied, Aria stood before the central console. The Sylphoid representative hovered nearby, its gaseous form pulsing with anticipation. "We're in," the Sylphoid's multi-tone voice announced. "The void is ours." A cheer went up from the assembled prisoners, but Aria knew their victory was far from secure. "Open a channel to the Galactic Council," she ordered. "It's time they faced the truth they've tried so hard to bury." As the communication systems hummed to life, Aria took a deep breath. She thought of Earth, so far away, of the conspiracy that had sought to keep humanity isolated, of all the lives affected by the corrupt machinations of those in power. The holo display flickered, and suddenly Aria was face to face with the Galactic Council itself. Beings of incredible power and influence stared back at her, their expressions ranging from shock to outrage to fear. "Honorable representatives of the Galactic Council," Aria began, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "I am Aria Chen, wrongfully imprisoned in the void. We have seized control of this facility to bring to light a conspiracy that threatens the very foundations of our united galaxy." As Aria laid out the evidence, corroborated by Zoril and the data they had uncovered, she could see the impact of her words. Some council members reacted with dismay, others with grim determination. A few, she noted, seemed unsurprised. Perhaps the architects of the conspiracy itself. "We demand a full investigation," Aria concluded, "and we will maintain control of the void until justice is served. Not just for me, not just for Earth, but for every being unjustly imprisoned here. The time for secrets and lies is over." As the council erupted into frantic debate, Aria turned to her allies. Zixrix, Grax, Craxus, the Sylphoid, beings she would have once considered enemies, now standing with her in common cause. "What happens now?" Zixrix trilled softly. Aria's gaze swept over the control room, over the faces of those who had fought and bled for this moment. "Now," she said, a hint of a smile touching her lips, "we finish what we started. The real work is just beginning." Outside the viewport, the stars shone coldly in the void of space, but within the void itself, a fire had been lit, a fire of hope, of justice, of change. And Aria knew that its light would soon spread across the galaxy, illuminating the darkest corners of corruption and deceit. The uprising had succeeded, but the revolution, that was just getting started. Revelation and redemption. The days following the uprising were a whirlwind of activity. The void, once a prison of despair, had become the epicenter of a galactic political earthquake. Aria found herself at the heart of it all, navigating a complex web of negotiations, revelations, and rapidly shifting alliances. The Galactic Council, reeling from the exposed conspiracy, had dispatched a special investigative team to the void. Led by a stern Arcturian truth-seer named Voxlum, the team arrived with a mandate to uncover the full extent of the corruption that had led to Aria's wrongful imprisonment and the larger plot against Earth. Aria stood at the docking bay, flanked by her unlikely allies, Zixrix, Craxus, Grax, and the shimmering form of the Sylphoid representative. As Voxlum disembarked, his crystalline eyes scanning the assembled group, Aria stepped forward. "Welcome to the void, Investigator Voxlum," she said, her diplomat's training kicking in despite the extraordinary circumstances. "We've been expecting you." Voxlum's gaze settled on Aria, his expression unreadable. "Aria Chen, your actions have sent shockwaves through the galactic community. I trust you understand the gravity of your situation. Arya nodded solemnly. We all do, investigator. That's why we've prepared full access to all the evidence we've gathered. The truth must come to light, no matter the cost. As the investigation unfolded, the void became a hive of activity. Prisoners were interviewed, records were scrutinized, and hidden data caches were uncovered. The full scope of the conspiracy began to take shape, revealing a plot more insidious than anyone had imagined. It wasn't just about keeping humanity isolated. The conspirators, a cabal of high-ranking officials from various species, had been manipulating galactic politics for centuries, using the void as their secret tool. Wrongful imprisonments, like Arya's, were just the tip of the iceberg. One evening, as Arya pored over the latest findings in the control hub, Zixrix entered, his feathers ruffled with excitement. Arya, you need to see this, the avian alien trilled, presenting a datapad. We found references to Earth in archives dating back millennia. Your species, you weren't meant to be isolated. You were meant to be erased. Arya's blood ran cold as she absorbed the information. The conspiracy hadn't just sought to keep humanity out of galactic affairs. It had been actively working to eliminate Earth entirely, seeing the young species as a threat to their carefully maintained power structure. But why? Arya murmured, her mind racing. What could they possibly fear so much about us? The answer came from an unexpected source. Craxus, who had been quietly observing the investigation, stepped forward. It's your adaptability, the Draktor rumbled. Your species learns, evolves faster than any other we've encountered. Given time and access to galactic knowledge, you could upset the balance of power that's existed for eons. Arya looked at Craxus, seeing him in a new light. You've known this all along, haven't you? Is that why you challenged me? Craxus nodded slowly. I had to see for myself if the legends were true. You proved them right, Arya Chen. In this place of hopelessness, you adapted, you united us, you changed everything. The revelation sent ripples through the void and beyond. As news spread, public opinion across the galaxy began to shift. Calls for reform echoed from 1,000 worlds, and the foundations of the old order began to crumble. Weeks turned into months, and slowly, painfully, justice began to take shape. The conspirators were exposed, trials were held, and the truth was laid bare for all to see. The void itself was transformed, no longer a prison but a symbol of resilience and the power of unity in the face of oppression. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Arya found herself standing before the Galactic Council once more. But this time, she wasn't a prisoner or a rebel. She stood as a free woman, vindicated and respected. Arya Chen of Earth, the council speaker intoned, his voice echoing through the grand chamber. You have uncovered a darkness that has plagued our galactic community for far too long. Your actions, while unorthodox, have served the greater good. How can we make amends for the injustice you have suffered? Arya took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. She thought of her journey, of the allies she'd made, of the battles fought and won. Honorable Council, she began, her voice strong and clear. I don't seek personal amends. Instead, I ask that we use this moment as a catalyst for change. Let us reform the systems that allowed this injustice to flourish. Let us extend the hand of true friendship and alliance to Earth and to all species who have been marginalized. She paused, her gaze sweeping across the assembly. And let us transform the void, not back into a prison, but into a center for rehabilitation, for diplomacy, for the kind of unity we discovered in our darkest hours. Let it stand as a testament to the fact that even in the bleakest circumstances, hope and justice can prevail. A murmur of approval rippled through the council. The speaker nodded solemnly. Your wisdom does you credit, Arya Chen. We shall take your words to heart. Earth will be welcomed into the galactic community with open arms, and the void shall be reborn. As the council session adjourned, Arya found herself surrounded by her friends from the void. Zixrix trilled happily, his feathers shimmering with joy. Grax gave a respectful nod, a smile crinkling his usually stern features. The Sylphoid representative swirled in patterns of bright, jubilant colors. And Craxus, the once feared Dractor leader, extended a clawed hand. "You've done it, human," he rumbled. "You've changed not just the void, but the entire galaxy." Aria took his hand, marveling at how far they'd come. "We did it together," she corrected. "All of us." As they made their way out of the council chambers, Aria paused at a viewport, gazing out at the star-filled expanse of space. Somewhere out there was Earth, no longer isolated, no longer threatened. And closer at hand was the void, once a place of despair, now a beacon of hope. "What will you do now?" Zixrix asked softly, coming to stand beside her. Aria smiled, a mix of excitement and determination in her eyes. "There's still so much work to do. Bridges to build, reforms to implement, a new era of galactic cooperation to foster." She turned to her friends, her fellow survivors of the void. "And I can't think of a better team to do it with." As they stood there, this unlikely group of former prisoners turned galactic reformers, Aria felt a sense of profound gratitude and purpose. The void had tried to break her, to erase her. Instead, it had forged her into something stronger, something that could truly change the universe for the better. The void of space stretched out before them, no longer a symbol of emptiness and isolation, but of infinite possibility. And as Aria Chen, the human who had reshaped galactic destiny, gazed into that limitless expanse, she knew that their greatest adventures were still to come. The story of the void was ending, but the story of a more just, more united galaxy was just beginning, and Aria couldn't wait to see where it would lead.